June 23, 1942, for 17 hours. 30,000 feet over the gray Atlantic west of Ireland. The cockpit shakes under constant vibration, for engines roar in a steady, grinding rhythm. Fuel gauges sit lower than anyone wants to see. The sky outside is empty and cold. No land, no ships, just cloud layers sliding past the wings. Inside the bomber, the crew barely speaks. Oxygen masks hiss with every breath. Frost creeps along the metal frames. The navigator checks his charts again. The radio stays silent. There's no turning back now. Suddenly, movement. Dark shapes cut across the clouds. Fighters fast, low sun behind them. German pilots sliding close, expecting tired aircraft from Iceland or Britain. Instead, they find American bombers still clean, still tight in formation, still carrying full defensive firepower. Machine guns swing, turrets lock on. The German pilots hesitate. These planes should not be here. Not this far out. Not without warning. The fighters break away. Confusion spreads across both sides of the sky. Below, the Atlantic rolls on, unaware. This moment is only a small crack in a much larger story. If you want more stories like this, make sure to subscribe, like, and share. Before this flight, crossing the Atlantic by air was slow, risky, and rare. Aircraft usually island-hopped. Newfoundland, Greenland, Iceland, then Britain. Each stop added time and danger. Weather delayed flights for days. German submarines watched known routes. Luftwaffe patrols waited near expected approaches. By 1941, the United States faced a problem. Britain needed aircraft fast, not ships months away, not small batches. Tire bomber groups, trained crews, ready to fight. The answer was range. American designers focused on long-endurance aircraft. The B-24 Liberator stood out. It used the Davis wing, long and narrow, built for efficiency. For Pratt & Whitney, our 1830 engines pushed it at about 290 miles per hour. Cruising altitude reached over 25,000 feet. Combat range exceeded 2,000 miles under the right conditions. With internal fuel tanks and careful load planning, it could go farther. Commanders pushed the idea further. If a bomber could reach Britain without stopping, it would avoid submarine threats and speed deployment. The risk was high. Navigation errors meant death. Weather over the Atlantic changed without warning. Rescue was unlikely. Yes. The U.S. Army Air Forces approved the plan. Ferry crews trained under Air Transport Command. Navigators drilled celestial fixes. Pilots practiced fuel management down to the gallon. Every pound mattered. By early 1942, the first nonstop transatlantic bomber flights were ready. Germany did not expect it. At first, the effort looked reckless. Early flights suffered delays and near disasters. Crews complained of exhaustion after 15 hours in the air. Icing clogged carburetors. Oil temperatures climbed without relief. Training reports were blunt. One noted navigation error of 10 miles could be fatal. Another warned no margin exists for mechanical failure. Some crews turned back after engine trouble. Others diverted to Iceland at the last moment. A few aircraft were lost at sea, their last radio calls fading into static. German intelligence dismissed the threat. Luftwaffe analysts believed American bombers lacked the range to cross directly. Fighter units assumed any U.S. aircraft seen near the Atlantic would be isolated or fuel-starved. One German pilot later wrote in a combat log, "Enemy bombers observed too far west to be operational." Even some Allied officers doubted the plan. Weather officers argued forecasts beyond 8 hours were unreliable. Maintenance crews warned engines were pushed too hard. Planes themselves had limits. The B-24 was heavy on takeoff. It demanded long runways and perfect engine coordination. Crews trained for hundreds of hours before attempting the crossing. Yet, the flights continued. Lessons came quickly. Crews learned to lean engines aggressively. Navigators refined star fixes through broken cloud layers. Radio silence was enforced to avoid interception. Each successful flight sharpened confidence. The strength of the operation became clear through repetition. Non-stop flights reduced transit time from weeks to days. Aircraft arrived combat-ready. Crews arrived rested enough to fly again. Fuel planning improved. A typical crossing burned nearly 2,000 gallons. Crews learned to climb slowly, to conserve fuel. Cruising altitudes were adjusted to balance wind and engine strain. Formation discipline mattered. Lone aircraft were vulnerable. Groups shared navigation fixes and weather observations. The bombers proved resilient. Liberator carried up to 10.50 caliber machine guns, nose, dorsal turret. Waist guns, tail. German fighters approaching expected weak ferry aircraft. Instead, they met coordinated fire. Speed played a role. Altitude. The B-24 could outrun early German interceptors in level flight. Range allowed routes far from known patrol zones. Soon, commanders expanded the idea. P-38 Lightning fighters joined the crossings. Twin engines gave redundancy. Drop tanks extended range. These fighters cruised at 300 miles per hour and arrived ready for escort duty. The Atlantic was no longer a barrier. In August 1942, a formation of 6 B-24s crossed from Maine to England. Midway through the flight, weather closed in. Thick cloud layers forced them to climb above 28,000 feet. Oxygen systems strained. Near the Irish coast, German Focke-Wulf 190s intercepted.
Ow.
2 fighters closed from the sun.
Ow.
A waist gunner shouted, "Bandits! High right!" The liberators held formation. Turrets tracked smoothly. Short bursts flashed. One German fighter broke away trailing smoke. The others disengaged. All 6 bombers landed in Britain the same day. In October 1942, P-38s flew from Greenland to England in one push. Over the Atlantic, icing-coated wings, pilots flew by instruments alone. One engine faltered on a Lightning halfway across. Pilot throttled back and pressed on. Over Scotland, German radar operators reported fighters appearing where none were expected. Interceptors scrambled too late. The Lightnings vanished into cloud and rain. In early 1943, a larger formation crossed under radio silence. 12 bombers, 2 weather fronts, 1 night crossing. Crews fought fatigue hour by hour. Near dawn, German night fighters approached. A navigator recalled, "They expected us to turn back. Instead, the bombers pushed forward." Defensive fire forced the fighters to keep distance. No losses. Each crossing added pressure on German defenses. Strategically, the impact was immediate. Aircraft production in the United States surged. In 1942 alone, over 2,000 B-24s rolled off assembly lines. Nonstop crossings allowed steady delivery without waiting for shipping schedules. Fuel consumption was high, but predictable. Training pipelines adjusted. Ferry crews became specialists. Maintenance teams in Britain received aircraft faster and in better condition. German defenses faced uncertainty. Radar coverage focused on known approach routes. Direct crossings appeared without warning. Fighter units wasted fuel chasing ghosts. By comparison, German long-range aircraft were limited. Few had the range to patrol deep Atlantic airspace. Submarines could not respond to air threats. The Allies gained momentum. Bomber groups formed faster. Escort fighters arrived sooner. Planning shifted from defense to offense. Psychologically, the effect cut deep. German pilots reported surprise and doubt. One wrote, "Enemy planes appear where logic says they should not." Slang names followed. Some called them Atlantic ghosts. Others simply said the Americans come straight from home. Morale suffered. Interceptor pilots felt unprepared. Ground crews questioned intelligence reports. But on the Allied side, confidence grew. Crews trusted their machines. They trusted their training. The ocean felt smaller. Late in the war, improvements refined the process. More reliable engines reduced failure rates. Better weather forecasting extended safe windows. Navigation aids improved accuracy. New variants carried additional fuel. Drop tanks became standard. Tactics emphasized altitude and route unpredictability. By 1944, nonstop crossings were routine. The legacy was clear. Hundreds of aircraft delivered directly. Thousands of aircrew moved faster into combat. The Atlantic ceased to be a shield. A German veteran later admitted, "We knew then that distance no longer protected us." The machine that once seemed too heavy, too risky, proved decisive. The sky itself had changed sides.